And we are back, and we just finished watching 2021's The Last Duel, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours and 32 minutes. This is directed by Ridley Scott with a screenplay by Nicole Holofcener and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, based on a book by Eric Jager. Jager. Jager.
Jager. Jager has 2 G's, isn't it?
Right, I guess. Okay, so Eric Jager. I thought this movie was just okay. I feel like I've heard big things about this film, but this was just okay. I felt like the script wasn't impressive. I mean, it was an interesting story. The way it was told was interesting as well. I'm assuming that the most truthful account was Marguerite's, but who knows? I just felt like it was just okay.
I'm kind of with you on there.
Okay.
I didn't like the way it was told. I thought it was completely unnecessary to have the 3 points of view, considering the 3 points of view were so similar. The only real differences in the 3 points of view were a couple of minor details.
True, but I think...
But everything, it was... In no way was it ever, I guess, the overarching thing, because there is a trial. It does become a he said, she said sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But when you see
with an interesting mode of justice,
when you see all the stories told, it's not really he said, she said. It's she said. Everything's laid bare for you, and nobody. Adam Driver's fighting for his innocence. He's being wrongly accused. We don't know if he's being. No, he's a douchebag.
He absolutely raped her.
He's a douchebag. Absolutely raped her. What was that line he said? Oh, well, we can't control ourselves or something.
Right.
Don't feel bad if we can't control ourselves.
Yeah.
He was so arrogant. What a piece of shit.
Yeah. And he definitely fed into his own hype, which was, I think, exacerbated by his relationship with Pierre.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Ben Affleck did not belong in this movie.
Yeah,
he was horrible.
He was painful to watch.
Horrible to watch.
Yeah,
he did not belong in this movie.
Yeah, it was so weird.
I could think of when watching him is like Pierre's mindset is just, oh, they're gonna do my bro like that. He did not belong there. He really didn't. He was terrible.
Really painful to watch.
He was awful. Like Matt Damon was good.
He was decent, and Adam Driver's
always great.
Was great. Jodie Comer, the wife, Marguerite, she was great.
She was great.
Harriet Walter, the mother, Matt Damon's mom.
Yeah, she was good. She had a smaller part, but it's funny. Like you hear the things that she was saying, basically just, hey, you get raped.
Right.
I was raped. I just went on with my life.
Yeah, I didn't make a big deal out of it.
I didn't make a big deal out of it.
And then the friend who kind of also was kind of a dick about it.
Which friend?
The one who ratted her out was like, you said that he was good looking.
What a bitch.
I was like, God. What?
And that was there was really no reason for her to even come forward with that.
No, none.
It sort of reminds me, and this mentality has not really changed. It's not like in the past, this is a way people thought in centuries long gone by. No, this is something that's been going on, and to a degree is still going on. Yeah. Where if someone gets raped, it's just like, well, what'd you do?
Right.
How were you dressed?
So
what'd you say? Were you flirting with him?
In that sense, this film could have taken place in any time frame.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love period pieces, but to me, this story, if this is the story that you want to tell, it could have been told in present day, and it probably would have been more interesting.
I think they were basing it on the
right. Apparently, it's based on real events. I mean, right? Sure. But you know what? I agree with you. I agree that the retelling of the same sort of. I mean, if you're gonna retell it, make it different, right?
Yeah,
make it so that it's.
The only difference was Matt Damon's version. He seemed the more
heroic,
sensible, and heroic person, whereas in Adam Driver's, he's the more sensible and heroic. And she was just totally flirting with him.
Right, because she secretly loved him.
Because she was giving him the signs.
Right.
And then in her version, it was just like, okay, I'm married to this kind of brutish guy. He does care for me, but I basically am his property now.
Right. Yeah.
And she had really barely any thoughts towards Adam Driver at all. She met him at a party, and while talking with her friends, she said, "Oh yeah, he's a good-looking guy."
But my husband says that he's not trustworthy. Right. So, and of course, she's not going to go against the husband.
Yeah. And then in her story, he's not even there for most of it until he shows up at the door and basically rapes her.
Right.
So yeah, Adam Driver was
nuts.
He was really buying his own hype, and like you said, Ben Affleck's party character, he was definitely hyping him up and just being like, it doesn't matter what she says, it has to go to the court, and guess who the court is? Me. I mean, he was terrible. It wouldn't have surprised me if after he said that he just went cha-ching or something.
I don't know. I think it was just, he was terrible in this. I mean, was it him? Was it the role? I don't know. It was him.
It was him.
It was
him. He doesn't belong in a period piece. He's just not. He's not that kind of actor.
Right.
You know,
they should have gotten Rob Pattinson to be like the douchey
when I was
French guy.
I was thinking exactly that.
Yeah.
Rob Pattinson's douchey character from The King.
Yeah. Would have been way better.
Way more appropriate. Yeah. I could see that them being the same character, but one portrayed by a competent actor. Doing period pieces, and one portrayed by Ben Affleck. I'm sure I'm being terrible to Ben Affleck, but I'm sure he's done some decent roles, and he does do well in a more modern setting.
Yes,
but I just can't. I mean, even his haircut.
Oh my God, I wanted to smash him in the face.
Yeah,
with that stupid hair.
He was like,
and the facial hair,
like bleach blonde Caesar cut. Was he Eminem?
I don't know. It was just, he kind of took me out, and
then at the end, he's just like in the stands, and he's just like,
my bro's gone.
He's like, damn, bro, you got done dirty, bro. He didn't actually say that, but you could totally see that's what he's thinking.
This is another one of those movies because it's, I guess, I don't know. It played at the end of the year. It got a lot of buzz at, I think, Venice, where it premiered last year.
And it didn't make a lot. I think the big controversy with this was that it really bombed at the box office, and Scott was upset about that, and basically was basically saying, "Oh, nobody likes good movies anymore. They just want to see like Marvel shit or something like that. Like you can't make an adult movie anymore or something." And that's not necessarily true. It's just, you know,
I'm sure COVID didn't hurt.
COVID didn't help.
But I think his House of Gucci movie did better.
Yeah.
So it's really not.
It's just people's taste. And let's be honest, you got a period piece with freaking Ben Affleck. And I don't know.
See, I feel
and it's
like
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And
this movie felt long to me.
You know why I felt long? Because they told the same story three times, and they didn't really deviate
from it. Like, if you're gonna use that mechanism, then make it interesting.
Make us wonder. Make us guess. Make us be like, oh my God, this point of view says it this way. This point of view, because that's the convention. Right. You have the bad guy's point of view, the good guy's point of view, and the person in the middle who's gonna tell you something that more akin to the truth. Right. And this just threw that out the window and just told you the same exact story 3 times with some deviations. Yeah. And not even interesting deviations. You could have cut this film down by 1/3. Yeah. Or 2/3, and you would have had the same freaking movie.
I mean, at one point, so we saw this on HBO Max. At one point, I turned to you and I was like, oh my God, how much more of this is there? And you like did the little thing, and it was like 45 minutes, and I was like, what in the hell is going on here?
Yeah, like the way they told the story, it just felt longer than it needed to.
So my question to you, I mean, the kernel of the story is somewhat interesting. Yeah. How could this have been better?
Just tell the story once. Seriously, it could have just been a straight up drama, flat out, no, oh, we're going to be cool and artsy with this way of telling it, you know, the 3 different perspectives. You know,
that works for some films, but this wasn't it.
Like the Japanese movie, which I can't remember, did that.
Rashomon.
Rashomon, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was good. That was actually
told
good.
the story two or three different ways. I forget.
Yeah.
And well used mechanism for telling a story. This completely unnecessary.
I didn't even think of that. You're right.
You could have just told this story. You didn't have to give us the perspectives of each person. Just film it all in one go. Because the whole rape scene, I didn't need to see that twice.
Or 3 times. Oh, no, twice, right? Because Matt Damon's perspective didn't include that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't need to see that twice. You could have just filmed it once and just let me make my own judgment about what's going on.
Right.
And I got to be honest, in both cases, in no way, shape, or form did I ever think that when Adam Driver told the story that he wasn't raping her.
Right.
Because it wasn't that different. It wasn't like suddenly she like succumbs to his charms.
Right.
The entire time she's saying no, and he's like, "Oh, well, she's a lady; she has to protest."
Right.
Making up all these excuses. Yeah, this could have been a much more concise film. I probably may have enjoyed it more if it just was, and also, Christ Almighty, Ben Affleck did not need to be cast in this movie. I know he was one of the writers, and I know sometimes they're just like, "Oh, we need a big name. We got to draw on the butts and seats." Celebrities don't do that anymore.
Right.
There's very few people who you're just like, oh, well, he's in the movie? Okay, I'm going to watch it now.
Right.
It's not like the olden days.
Okay, question for you. So I'm going to right off the bat say I'm giving this a 6. It wasn't the worst thing I ever saw. Yeah, it wasn't great.
Give it a 6. Yeah, 6 is a pro. It was okay.
This is definitely Oscar bait. So far, I think
it's failing Oscar bait in my mind.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, who knows? It's Ridley Scott. I think
pretty.
People just
it's well filmed.
Yes, and the set pieces and the costuming is fantastic.
Battle scenes are excellent.
Excellent.
The fight cinematography at the end is great. The cinematography. It just I don't know.
And the actors, excluding Ben Affleck, and most of the actors in this film did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
However, having said all that, the kernel of the story was interesting, and I agree with you. If they were going to do that here, they should have just done it linear without this little cutesy storytelling mechanism. However, my critique would have been, if you're going to do this story, do it in modern day, because I think that would have appealed to audiences more. Get a more dynamic script. Like, this script felt like, no offense to film school students, but this film, like, the screenplay felt like a film school screenplay. There was nothing dynamic about it. There was nothing like, wow, that was like really good writing. Sometimes
I thought the writing was fine. I just don't like the way they told the story. I mean, the dialogue was fine. It's felt, I mean, obviously people didn't really talk like that back then. But it wasn't so far removed from that. I mean, they weren't saying bro or anything like that.
True, but I just, you know what?
But the story just wasn't there. I mean, not the way the story was told. This is not an original story.
Right.
Even we just said Rashomon. Wasn't that the same thing?
Same thing. Basically, yeah. I didn't even think of that until you mentioned it.
Assaulted. They probably saw that and were like, "Oh man, there's a book that's sort of like that with medieval guys.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Yeah,
bro."
But I think making this again, I think the idea of the story was interesting, but I think that telling this in modern times would have maybe
think you need
bolstered.
To even tell it in modern times. The whole like hook of this movie is that it's a historical drama about the last duel and what this duel was about. Mm-hmm. You can't have that nowadays.
Was that the last duel, though?
I have no freaking idea, but it
couldn't have been.
True story, I guess.
Hamilton happened way after that.
Well, medieval type duel.
I'm sure there were more duels.
Guys with broadswords and plate mail and stuff like that.
I'm sure there were more duels after that.
There may have been. I don't know.
I mean, her husband dies a few years later at the Crusades.
I'm sure somebody got insulted during the Crusades over lunch, and they were like, well,
yeah. So that
you ate my chicken.
Yeah, that couldn't have been the last. I mean, that was the last duel for Adam Driver's character. But
I wanted to date that prostitute.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think when you see the name Ridley Scott, you assume something greater, and this was just
Yeah, it didn't. Honestly, it didn't feel like a Ridley Scott movie.
It didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like Ridley, they basically were just like, could we hire Ridley Scott? And he would just do it, and he was just like, you know what, I got
some time on my hands.
I got the time on my hands. I think there's some space during this Gucci thing I could film. You got the plate mail ready?
I'm curious to see that. And it must be interesting because he's used Adam Driver in that movie as well. So he must like working with him.
Adam Driver's an excellent actor.
He really is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not likable in this, but again, you're magnetized to him because he is that character. Whenever he's in a role, he inhabits that character, which is kind of interesting. And I kept turning to you and doing the line from the skit from SNL,
which he also committed to 100%.
That guy's the GOAT. He is amazing. I think I don't know. I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but when I was in film school, I had a screenplay that I did, and the teacher annihilated me because I had based it in the time of the Spanish Inquisition. And he was like, well, this isn't the vernacular of the time. You should have done your homework, blah, blah, blah. So he really got on me about that. So that's always in the back of my head. And obviously, when you're writing screenplays, it's hard to do that kind of vernacular in the present day because nobody speaks like that anymore. It doesn't register. You'd probably have to
turn off an audience.
Yeah, you'd probably have to run subtitles under it, right? Just to get people to understand it. But I felt like there were so many disjointed pieces here. I'm listening to Matt Damon and I'm like, you don't belong here. And
I didn't get that from Matt Damon.
I don't know.
For me, it's Matt Damon felt like he was trying.
Yes, I do feel like he was trying.
I thought he did a good job. And also, as far as the vernacular, it wasn't. They weren't talking like Shakespeare.
Right, but then it's weird because then you have Jodie Comer, who's a British actress, and the guy who played her father, Nathaniel Parker, he's also British. So you listen to them, and they have a different way of speaking. The guy from The Terror is also British, so he has a different way of speaking.
Well, they have accents.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. If you're going to make this being in this particular time, then everyone should speak a certain way. And because they didn't, that sort of took me out of it too. And that was my issue with the Matt Damon character, because it's oh, you're not even trying to be a part of this. You're just being Matt Damon acting.
How come it didn't bother you with Adam Driver?
It did. I was going to get to that. Even though I found his character interesting, the fact that he also didn't, at least in my mind, commit in that way to having a more uniform, colloquialism in the film bothered me a bit. So to me, it was oh, here's this film with a bunch of Americans and a bunch of Brits thrown together. So that sort of took me out of it, which is kind of a stupid thing to nitpick about. But if you want to do something in this particular time, this is why my notes would have been if I was the studio person, I would have been you know what, scrap this shit and make it in 2020 wherever. Then this way you can have all of that. You can make it meaner. You can make it grittier and make it more interesting to a present day audience. I'm sure that this book is compelling. I'm sure that the story itself is interesting, and it was in a way. I mean, that's pretty way pretty interesting way of justice, right? We're just going to leave it in God's hands, and if we're correct, then God will favor us. I mean, that's just a weird
like
sense
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was definitely that. And so that part of it was interesting to me. I found the Jodie Comer character extremely interesting, Marguerite, because here's this woman who, like you said, is basically property, right? I mean,
yeah, even when they outline the crime, rape is not a crime against the woman.
It's a crime.
Rape is a crime against the man's property.
Right. So that was interesting. And then at the end, when you see her kind of like 4 feet behind the husband and she's just like going through the motions, right?
Yeah, he's like raising his hand.
Right. He's basking in the glory of his redemption.
My name is good again.
Right, exactly. And it was almost like she was like an afterthought. Like I would hope that if God forbid something like that traumatic happened to me, like, and even like when she's telling the story from her viewpoint, when she tells him what happened, he attacks her.
Yeah, he's strangling her.
He's like strangling her. And I'm like, holy cow. I mean, I didn't expect him to be all like, oh my God, are you okay? But I didn't expect him to go after her. And the first thing out of his mouth is, are you telling me the truth? Which I thought was also very interesting. And I wondered, like, is that part of the time where, like, if somebody had said something like that, would that be the first reaction? That's interesting to me. So, like, those parts of the story I found very interesting. But the story as a whole, I just had so many issues with it. I didn't feel like the script was that interesting. It's funny, we recently saw The Power of the Dog, right? Which is also another Oscar bait movie, and I feel like that was way better than this.
It was better, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no performance in there where I was just like, this doesn't belong.
Right.
You know? And also it's funny, that one was also broken up into chapters, but at least it was the linear story.
Right.
This one was broken up into
and you're not retelling the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
With such little variance.
Yeah.
It really was not interesting the way they told it.
Yeah. Well, what did you say your number was?
6.
6. Yeah, I'd give this a 6. I just it's so weird. Sometimes I'm like, am I watching the same films as these other people? Because I've heard people go on and on about this film, and I'm like,
you know what? Some people just want to blow smoke up Ridley Scott's ass. It's like, oh, it's a Ridley Scott movie. It's got to be, outstanding art.
But it's interesting because he's great. He's a good filmmaker, and it's funny because you can watch Alien ad nauseum. Yeah. Like that movie, I could sit anytime, anywhere, at any day and still want to watch that.
Yeah.
And it's still just freaking from start to finish such an awesome film. This,
yeah, I'll be happy. I mean, if it's on and there's absolutely nothing else on, I would watch this, but
I don't think I'd ever revisit this.
I'm just saying if I'm like channel surfing.
Other than to mute it and whenever Adam Driver comes on and say, look at me, boy.
All right, so let's wrap this up.
All right, so that's it from us. If you are a huge Ridley Scott fan, yeah, I guess watch it just so that you're up to date on his filmography. If you like the actors in this, watch it. I do still think that Jodie Comer and Adam Driver were probably like the most compelling characters in this piece. Matt Damon did a good job, but not as. I think I felt more for the other two. Yeah, I mean, watch it if you feel like it. I don't know. I'm not your mother. I'm not your boss. Do whatever the hell you want. And that's it from us. We're gonna bid you all a good night. Good night.
Good night.